Okay, I'm sure more people will filter in as I'm talking. Um, Welcome everyone. Thanks so much for coming to this Diverse Voice event about climate and health. We've got two really great speakers lined up. Just a bit of admin before we properly get into it. So the way this will work is we'll have the two speakers speak for about 10 minutes each at the start, and that will be recorded. And then afterwards, we'll go to a question and answer session, which you will be able to ask questions in. So you can either put those in the chat throughout, or you can hold them until the end. And that Q&A will not be recorded, so you can kind of ask what's on your mind. Obviously, this is on Zoom. We won't have many PowerPoint slides, just this at the start, but you can keep an eye on the chat. And if you have any technical issues with Zoom, then honestly just try leaving the call and coming back again. But this first bit will be recorded and go onto YouTube if you do miss anything. So I'm going to stop sharing now, and hopefully you can still see me. So I think we're going to get started with our first guest speaker, who is Dr. Roxana Remy. So Roxana did her BSc and an MSc in environmental sciences in Bangladesh, and then came over to the University of East Anglia to do an MSc in climate change science. She then did a PhD at the University of Oxford and I think completed it in 2019. And some of her work has been cited in the IPCC's sixth assessment report. But I won't say too much more because I'll let her introduce herself. So I'll give you about 10 minutes. It's over to you, Roxana.
Thank you. Um, right. So, first of all, I'm really happy to have this opportunity here to share my journey, my experience, and how did I end up with where I am today. So, where to start? I would say when I was doing my graduation in Bangladesh in environmental sciences. So that was a first batch in that university. And I was a student of the first batch. And as a student of the first batch, there was always challenges around resources and limitation in everything. I mean, space or books or library or even teachers. But eventually, we did overcome all those limitations, and I could really um, have this nice experience of studying this exciting subject, which seemed to be very, very interesting to me because it was not a single field of anything. It was like mixture of everything. So we were studying physics, chemistry, biology, geography, history, economics, computer science, whatnot. So never to be bored. So right, when I was doing my MSc in environmental science, I got an opportunity to work as volunteer as a rapporteur, and just help with some seminars and workshop at climate change cell, which was then under the Department of Environment in the ministry. So I was there and I was very much overwhelmed to see for the first time that climate change, what is it, and how this issue is very important for the low-lying country floodplain of Bangladesh, which is always being flooded, but the things are changing, getting more worse or intense. So all the climate scientists were presenting their work in the workshops and seminars, and I was just, giving the microphones from one people to other for them to ask anything. But I noticed that in that table where people were talking about it, there were more kind of people from policy sectors or maybe some government departments or agencies or NGOs. And the number of scientists were rather limited. And very few were talking about the scientific evidence, but more about the other things around it. So I felt it's very important, and I felt that there is a very big gap in it. I mean, more people needs to be in it. So that was the point when I was for the first time interested to be more involved in climate change science. So I decided that my MSc dissertation will be something on it. When I actually shared this at my department, there was no interest from any faculty member to supervise me because their background was not in climate change. They were from geology, geography, chemistry, or biology. So they wanted me to do something in the lab with them. But I said, no, I want to do this and just uh, I will I will manage somehow. And then I actually manage somebody else outside from the department. I went to uh, it was a was Agriculture Research Council. So there was a scientist who was working on climate change modeling and looking at its impact on rice production. So I went to him and I just speak about my interest, and I said I want to work under your supervision. So that was how I could get the chance to work on climate change model and impacts on agricultural production for Bangladesh. So that was the first work I did for my MSc. Then after finishing my MSc, I started my career as a teacher. And then after 2 years, I had this Commonwealth scholarship to do MSc degree in the UK. So I came to University of East Anglia and did my MSc in climate change science. And in this time, I was really happy to have this, exposure to world quality education and resources and labs and everything. So it was really a nice experience for me to learn everything, to have all this experience, to do things in a higher quality or everything. And after at the end, when the dissertation time came, I wanted to do something with Bangladesh. So again, challenging. So I decided to look at climate change adaptation policy for agriculture sector. And for that I had to do interviews and had to talk with different stakeholders, policymakers in Bangladesh. And then again I realized that there is a very big gap in actually recognizing the issue and involving or incorporating that into the policies and strategies so that the impacts are tackled with higher resilience or something like that. So that was another experience where I realized that more needs to be done. So yeah, that dissertation was also done, and I finished my MSc, and I went back to my teaching profession. And so there, a few years passed. Then I thought, okay, it's time for me to go again and have my PhD because I want to do something more. So I again tried for common scholarship, and I got it. So in this time, I actually tried for Oxford University and Cambridge University, not because that I was like targeting it at the very initial moment, but because my mother, she was very much adamant, I would say, that if you are going for PhD in the UK, you should go to Oxford, because Oxford and Cambridge, they are big names. I mean, in Bangladesh, people just can't even believe that somebody from Bangladesh can go there. That kind of tough it is, people think. But my mother was very confident about me that no, you will go there, try it. That will be your first choice, and you will do it. So very fine. I did try, and I communicated with the supervisors and wrote everything about the proposal and this and that. And uh, I would say my journey was hard from the very beginning. So on the day when I was giving my final viva for the scholarship in Bangladesh, my father-in-law actually died. So I was not in a position, to go and give the viva. But my husband really, really, and my father, both of them just made me to go and just give the viva. He said, doesn't matter what happens, you came forward up to this level, you should go for it. So I gave the viva, and luckily, or I don't know, by the grace of Almighty, I just got the scholarship, full scholarship, to come here in Oxford and do the PhD. So I started my PhD in 2013, yeah, many years ago. And what I found that in the climate research lab, I am the only person who is from South Asia. There are all the people who are from Europe or North America or UK, and everybody's very good at what they do. And I'm the person who has zero capability of coding anything. So I didn't know to do anything in any super sophisticated calculation things. So I was feeling very low, how will I do it? I came here, yeah, but can I be able to actually do it? So I was feeling very low and not really confident. And looking around, I was also not feeling finding anyone to share my less of uh, confidence. But my supervisor, he was very, very, very helpful. He said, Ruxana, don't worry. One day you will teach people what you will do here. So I remember his words. And another thing is, one person, she made my initial 2 years of journey really more difficult, because she was always complaining that you're struggling. Why don't you just give up? What is this? You can't do it. But then again, another person in the same lab, he was like very helpful. He was always encouraging me, inspiring me. And he was saying, no, it's fine. Everybody starts from zero, and then they can do it. It's just a steep learning curve. You can do it. Just keep going. It will be okay. So that was really kind, and that really helped me to learn from scratch, from zero capacity, to looking at extreme weather events, which involves analyzing millions and millions and millions of model runs. So simulation of millions of model for Saudi Asia region for the first time, because it was already established for other regions, the modeling system, but not for South Asia. This time again, I decided I will do something for Bangladesh. So yeah, I had to evaluate the modeling system for South Asia region, and that was one paper. And then I looked at weather extremes for rainfall for different seasons. That was another paper. And I looked at, for the first time, an extreme weather events that happened in 2017 in Bangladesh, and become able to establish that climate change actually increased the probability of that extreme event by a factor of 2. So this was the first kind of scientific evidence which actually showed that how climate change is increasing the risks of extreme events in a country like Bangladesh. And that paper was winner of Best Journal Award, Commonwealth, and Taylor and Francis Award in 2019. So that was a good achievement, I would say. And I was really happy. And my supervisor said, see, I told you, don't worry. You start from zero, but you will somewhere where you will create examples and you will teach people. So that was really nice. And I went back in 2019 after my PhD. And then one paper was not published yet. Uh, and again, I struggled because from Bangladesh, the internet speed is not so good. And I had to access the server in Oxford and finish the additional, analysis to be done for the reviewers' comments to be addressed. And again, I struggled and struggled and struggled, and eventually that paper was published after 2 years. So my my life was always this kind of full of obstacles, full of challenges, full of limitations. But I never give up, and I never become tired to go beyond that challenge. So I would say the journey is always what we decide to go for. The journey is important. And all those obstacles really makes us strong and makes us who we become at the moment. So right after 2019, the COVID years happened, right? So everything was locked down. So I was stuck for like 2 years, and again I came back when everything settled down in 2022, and I tried for my first job after PhD. So I landed in UK Health Security Agency as a climate change scientist, where I had this privilege to again work with climate change models and looking at impacts on health in the UK, like for example, looking at extreme hot and cold temperatures and how future mortality risks may change under those extreme temperature regimes, and then looking at heat indices and humidity, whether this could be an issue for UK population now or in the future. And another big project I worked was looking at not just climate change, but looking at like policy interventions. So net zero scenario, if that is achieved, then what would be the benefits what would be the health benefits if the net zero is achieved, and the traffic pollution is reduced, air quality is improved by a certain amount, then what would be the averted number of mortality for that scenario? So that was a kind of combination of both looking at climate change, different scenarios, and also looking at policy interventions. So I think this actually was like going beyond the meteorological aspect and looking at the impacts or interventions as well. So that was really nice. I mean, I felt that that's really another important experience, because uh, that was like adding more, skill sets. And to do this particular project, again, I had to learn SQL coding, I had to learn GIS, I had to learn some other as well technological things, so that the air quality modeling data could be processed, the geographical context could be added, the socioeconomic things could be also incorporated. So all these different elements could be processed and ready and be involved, I mean, be used in the model that will eventually uh, give us the number, the mortality numbers. So yeah, I mean, the way you proceed, the way you go on doing different things in collaboration with different people from different universities who are from different regions, it really helps you to shape your experience, your learning, your skill sets. Everything gets improved. And that's really helps to go forward and look for the next opportunity. So yeah, so now I'm working in another project, this time with London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. And here I'm working as a research fellow in climate and health. And now I'm looking at tropical diseases in Africa, West Africa, for a country, Togo, which is a very little country in West Africa. And this country has many problems, health problems, and many limitations in terms of resources and high vulnerability if we talk about climate change. So now I'm using my expertise and previous experience to look at how climate change may impact on diarrhea, malaria, and heat related mortality and morbidity. And why did I actually got interested to be involved in this, like considering other opportunities? I thought that this is an opportunity for me to work on climate change impacts modeling for a country that really, really, really needs it. The country that is highly vulnerable, the country where people are already suffering. And the evidences, the scientific evidence, and the findings, whichever will come out from it, will be practically useful for them to to be to be more resilient, to be more prepared to tackle future climate change impacts. So uh, I think that's the inspiration, that's the motivation for me to be involved in this kind of projects. And I would say that from the very beginning, I was prepared to face any challenge and overcome any limitations, but keep my eyes fixed on the target. And on the way, there will be people who will discourage you, but there will be also people who will support you, encourage you. So I think as a woman, as a South Asian or Bangladeshi scientist, climate scientist, my journey was not an easy one, but I did overcome the obstacles, and I'm here where I'm proud to share my experience. And I'm happy to, I think I'm happy to be, say that now I'm able to teach really what my supervisor said, that you will teach people and help people to choose this field and come uh, from my country or the region. So I think I have talked enough. Maybe there will be more opportunity to answer questions at the Q&A session. So I think I will stop here, and thank you again for giving me this chance.
Thanks, Roxanne. That's super interesting. I have loads of questions, but yes, I'll save them until the Q&A at the end. I think let's go to Eunice. So Eunice is a climate scientist at the University of Bristol, also focusing on extreme weather and impacts, particularly on health. So she looks at things like heat waves, cold snaps, and other hazards, and looks at kind of historical time, but also climate change scenarios, and uses all sorts of things like weather and climate observations, large ensembles, and of course, health models. And I think kind of fairly recently, she's been doing some interesting work surveying people on lived experience of health. So maybe we'll hear about that. She's also contributed to the IPCC Sick Assessment Report, held an honorary position at the UK Health Security Agency, and a couple of months ago, actually, won the Ella Richardson Award from the Royal Meteorological Society. So, Eunice, over to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me, Regan. Yeah, I'm Eunice Lowe. I'm a climate scientist at Bristol. I've been here for about 8 years. It's interesting because this was my first postdoctoral job after I graduated my PhD at Reading. My original contract at Bristol was 6 months long, and I'm still here after 8 years. So things do carry on sometimes, and it's a combination of luck and a good supportive team and interesting research. Yeah, so at Bristol, I look at the health impacts of extreme weather events coming from a background in climate science, primarily a focus on heat waves, but increasingly I also look at other extreme events like extreme cold and also going forward probably some flooding events. I primarily focus on the UK because, like the previous speaker, I quite like to inform policy. And living in the UK, I do work with government and the Met Office and the UK Health Security Agency quite a lot on informing various things. Early warning systems is something that I'm currently very interested in, and also pulling together data not just from health or climate modeling, but also people's real experiences. So, so the work I do currently is quite interdisciplinary. I work with, for example, social scientists to really do focus groups or interviews with people who experience the heat wave, which is actually everybody. But we've got a lot of people participating, particularly in Bristol, where I'm based, because we get to work with the Bristol City Council and a large health cohort who have got 10,000 people participating and giving their data to health research here. So we survey people about their experiences, and I think that this is really a very unique thing because we can then fill in the gaps where we don't have, for example, NHS data on how people sleep during heat, for example, which personally I've experienced quite adverse impacts in the last few nights. So these are the things that I'm interested in. How I got to where I am currently starts from, so I grew up in Hong Kong, so spent my first 18 years or so educated and raised in Hong Kong. Really interested in physics by the time I was doing my A levels. And I think I was always fascinated by weather in particular, coming from a place where in Hong Kong we get terrible heat stress. I was there a couple of weeks ago and it was very hot and humid, but also we get a few typhoons every year. There's really good warning systems there where as a kid, I think we liked typhoons because when it's extreme and when it's a typhoon number 8 or 10 signal, which are the highest ones, nobody goes to work and all schools get closed, so you just stay at home and have a day off. So people generally love them, which is not what I recommend as a climate scientist now, but when I was a kid, absolutely loved them. So I guess that's why I was always interested in weather and climate. But also very interested in physics when I was in A levels. So I actually decided to do physics and astronomy as my first degree. I went to Durham University in Northeast England to do a master's physics. Ended up, it was supposed to be a BSc, but then I liked it so much that I extended for a year. In physics and astronomy, so a lot of my quantitative physical background come from that. I don't really remember the astronomy bit now, but I used to enjoy it very much. I just didn't enjoy as much of just going out looking at a telescope in the middle of the night. Not my thing. Field work is still not very my thing currently. So yeah, I did a 4-year undergraduate program in Masters of Physics in at Durham. The fourth year was mainly a research project, and I was doing something about very high energy gamma ray sources in space. So I was calibrating telescopes. That was my research project. Calibrating telescopes based in Namibia. I still haven't been to Namibia, but we had a few telescopes there, and they needed to be calibrated because they recorded trigger rate on the telescopes. These rays got impacted by the atmosphere because the very high energy gamma ray sources were from afar, but then the kind of radiation gets into the atmosphere, gets scattered, and all sorts of various things by aerosols mainly. Once it gets to further closer to the telescopes, so we kind of had to calibrate the reading on the telescopes with respect to the number of aerosols and other things in the atmosphere. So that was what I did. I can't remember the outcome of my research project. That was 2013, I think, my master's project. So it got me very into kind of atmospheric, in particular aerosols, I think, and atmospheric conditions in general. At the time, in my fourth year of my undergrad in physics, I also was very interested in quantum computing. It's just where computer bits can be something that's not just 0 or 1, but like some combination between them in quantum states. And I was fascinated by this in the course. So I told my supervisors at the time that I either wanted to do a PhD in quantum computing or weather and climate, and I had to decide between the two. It took me a year, so I worked in Hong Kong for a year when I was applying to PhDs. I decided to go into weather and climate, and my supervisors at Durham said Reading is the place if you wanted to do weather and climate, because they heard them a lot on the radio. Obviously, there are many other good places to do research in meteorology, but I ended up doing a PhD in atmosphere, oceans, and climate at Reading University. I graduated in 2018. My project was then about the stratosphere. So I went from space to space and astronomy to kind of like high up in the atmosphere. Also about aerosols. So I was looking at how we could potentially put aerosols up into the stratosphere to cool the climate in a warming climate. So something called geoengineering. It was again all done on computers. I didn't do any field work or real experiments on this. And so it was a model using climate models. Other people had come up with some thought experiments where we put aerosols into the stratosphere to artificially cool the climate temporarily. And then I was looking at whether we could then detect a signal in terms of cooling in temperatures on the surface. So kind of a detection and attribution project, but looking at whether we could detect cooling signals from something that's in the stratosphere. So I enjoyed that project a lot, and that got me into kind of like this, the more in the meteorological world and association with the Royal Meteorological Society. I graduated in 2018, and by the time I graduated, I think before I graduated, I got a job at Bristol, and it was designed to look at the health impacts of extreme weather. It's still quite relevant to my PhD because it's still kind of associated with future climate change and using climate models and detection and attribution and so on. But I had to learn all of the health stuff because I didn't know any of the health modeling. I had a great team, primarily in the London School at the time, to set me up to do the health modeling that I still do today. So I know how to run the health models, but primarily my background has come from physics and climate. And yeah, ever since I've been doing interdisciplinary research because I've moved from astronomy to the stratosphere to kind of like Earth. And now I'm interested in the impacts of things that happen on Earth, in particular the extreme events, because those are the high impact events and a lot of people are impacted by them, obviously. I really enjoy doing the interdisciplinary work because you learn different techniques from other people that can be applied to your own research. You get to understand how other people work. I found out that even things like you know, how do you order people on a paper, like order their names on a paper? It's different between different disciplines. So you get to learn a lot of different things in research cultures that are outside of your field, and you make a lot of friends along the way. So I really like that. Takes more time to do all of it, obviously, because you need to meet the people, talk a lot, and then learn to do some of the modeling. But it also makes it very rewarding when it gets published or get used in policy. Yeah, so I'm currently doing the lived experience of extreme weather thing. I'm doing various other things. I'm contributing to writing the next UK climate change risk assessments, which is something that every 5 years has to happen, and the government needs to respond to these risk assessments once it comes out through like a national adaptation program. So I think, yeah, I'm very enjoying doing research in the impacts and impacting policy, because I see that, you know, changes could be made in the real world rather than studying very high energy gamma ray sources in space, which I thought was still very interesting. But at some points I did think, why, you know, what happens after I find one more gamma ray source? So that's just my personal preference. It's very interesting research still, and obviously pushing the frontiers of science and making new knowledge that people didn't know before in all disciplines is extremely important, even though some of it might not have direct, you know, human impact yet, but we never know. Yeah, but I really don't have much advice. I think it's a combination of luck and having enjoyed what I have been doing, and I think that's the main thing, that it's very important to do research that you find very interesting. So I think I'll stop here.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eunice. Great overlap as well, I think, between the two speakers of different but also similar experiences. So I think we'll go to questions and answers. If anyone has a question to start off, maybe